This
So
conference will now be recorded.
I've got about 10 years experience as an ABAP developer, as a basis admin, and DB2 DB administrator. And I've done some security admin stuff as well. And I'm currently on a project supporting SAP environments, the ECC. There's on DB2 databases which I support. I also support Postgres databases and MS SQL databases and HANA. So I've got some experience with HANA, but not enough. So I just felt like I needed to complete some kind of training on HANA.
Okay, so it seems you are well versed with the SAP world, and you have at least some working experience, or you have worked at times on HANA database, but you want a more deeper understanding of the HANA database administration, like end-to-end understanding of the all the aspects of database administration. Am I correct?
Correct, correct.
Okay, yeah, fine. Fine. So this is a demo lecture. So this would probably go on, for around probably 25, 30 minutes, wherein, I'll cover a topic like an introduction to the SAP HANA database, and we'll take it on from there. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, sorry, was I on mute? Did you hear my what I spoke just now,
No, no, no.
Srini?
You were on mute.
Oh, sorry, Srini. So, fine. So I'll just, take you through the course content. I'll share my screen, and which will, will introduce you about the course content, and then we will do a short presentation about the introduction to the HANA database. What exactly is the database, and what you will learn in the course. So, you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Uh, you guys are able to see my screen? Uh, are you able to see my screen? I can't hear you.
Yes, yes. I can see your screen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I think you were on mute then. Okay, so this is our course for HANA Database Administrator. So this is purely, you will learn through all the aspects of HANA database administration, and this is broadly based upon the official SAP course, that is HA200, official SAP book, that is HA200 book, that covers, most of the things are based on that course. Okay, so the training goes like this. It's an introduction to SAP HANA. What is SAP HANA? What is an in-memory database? And how the database architecture is, of course, you learn persistence layer, and then we'll do an installation of SAP, for which you'll probably need to have an access to the server. You can do that, And then we will see under what different scenarios the SAP HANA can be deployed. It can be deployed as a single container system. It can be deployed as a multiple container system. It can be deployed as multiple components on one database, and it can be deployed as a multiple components on one system. So various types of these are the usual terms. This you will hear in your workplace, that uh, while you discuss the database architecture with your clients, or with your colleagues. So we will understand each of these and how this deployment options are used for different scenarios. Then we'll go through the installation of the SAP HANA database. We'll probably do a sample installation there, and you'll see how you can connect to a database from Studio. And then we'll learn about the post installation steps, what you usually do in a post installation steps. You will go through a small exercise where you learn about how you will upgrade your HANA database from uh, when SAP launches different revisions. So these will learn. We'll also learn about the different administration tools that you use to administer your database. So HANA Studio is there, HANA Cockpit is there, and HANA DBA Cockpit, and some basic monitoring and troubleshooting you will understand. So that if you're requested to do uh, any basic troubleshooting or monitoring for a database, you can do that. Then we'll see about the operations. Next important step is the database operations. So that's about starting and stopping the SAP HANA database, and like various operations that are done for each database. For any database, for take not only HANA. So these are the standard operations that you do in your BAU, business as usual, project lifecycle. So different things we'll understand. Uh, then you learn about the SAP HANA memory, and the startup sequence. So like more architectural things about the SAP HANA database, about its different processes that are used in database, and how the ports are assigned to the different processes, and how these are used you know in real time scenario. So then we'll understand about the backup and recovery of the database, which is of course an important thing for any database. So various types of backups we will understand, what options are there, what you know how to configure them, and how to do a recovery from different options. So we'll understand that. And not everything is there are various options here, not all the options for the backup, and many of these things you can practice here, because a lot of time there are third party backup tools are involved, so you can't really you know uh, do this. So one more thing we'll understand is about maintaining the users and authorizations in HANA, an important task for any database administrator, how you will manage your users. Then something very important about the HANA multiple database containers, MDC, because this is how the HANA 2.0 comes by default. So the latest HANA revision, HANA 2.0, by default is a multiple container databases. So one system database contains various tenant databases. That's how the architecture is. So that's where you learn about how to uh, administer those tenant databases. Okay. And one more thing is about the scalability. We'll understand how you will scale up your database or scale out your database. So vertical scaling and horizontal scaling. Another important aspect for any database administrator is high availability and disaster recovery, because of course any live production running HANA database needs to have the provision for high availability and disaster recovery. So we'll learn how that's been configured in HANA database. We'll understand about the system replication within HANA. So that's one of the high availability methodology that's been used. So we'll understand about that. Also, I'll take you through the HANA host auto failover concept, how that's done in a scale out environment. So this is more in detail about the scale out, and at the end we'll just have an overview about the database migration option. um, this is predominantly used when you migrate your database, let's say from any Oracle database into your HANA database, or you want to migrate, probably from a normal HANA data suite on HANA application to your S4 HANA application. So this DMO or database migration option is used, but we'll just have a quick overview of that. Uh, that is, that is all about this training. So, any questions you have here about the training?
Well, what about using HDB SQL, from the command line, administering HANA from the command line as well? Is that something you can cover?
Yes, certainly we will cover that. That comes under the HANA uh, operations. So we'll cover that. So that usually is part of the HANA operation. So daily HANA operations. You have been asked to run something on the SQL, or you want to fetch some statistical data from the HANA database. So we'll cover that under the operations.
Okay, okay. Now, what about performance tuning? Because in my environment, we're running into a lot of performance issues.
Hmm.
You
Okay, so
know.
we will. Yeah, so we'll touch upon that performance tuning in the operations, HANA operations. So I can accommodate that. Uh, so I can show you how to analyze performance bottlenecks in a database, and how do we actually use some standard SAP best practices to out of my experience I can share you those things. So we'll cover those things under the operations, HANA operations here.
What about transporting changes from
Yeah.
dev to test to production?
Yeah, so transporting changes will be covered under the HANA content and delivery unit. So here we'll show you, how do uh, we do transport the changes between the HANA environments. Now, usually what happens is the this particular methodology, you can transport the delivery units, etc., through HANA. And also, if you are using any ABAP applications on top of HANA, there is a provision, in those transport tools. And many companies may use third-party transport tools as well. But I will just show you how is it done at the HANA Studio level. Let's say you develop something into HANA and you want to transport it from development to test environment. So that part will be covered here.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so is there a way to, from the DBT? So is HANA, because I looked at some of the HANA command line for HPD SQL, and it's very similar to Postgres. Is there a connection between the two?
No, there's no connection between the two. But from database administrator's point of view, you you will not be required to develop any HANA SQL scripts, HTTP SQL scripts. There is a lot of pre-developed content available within SAP in different SAP nodes, which allows you to fetch whatever data you want from the database in order to uh, uh, you know um, fetch get the data from the database basically. Because
Yeah, yeah,
HDB, that is mainly the HANA modelers who develop the HANA models. They need to know in depth. They need to have the in-depth knowledge of the HANA HDB SQL. But as a database administrator, it's not expected. You know that a person would have an in-depth knowledge.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because in my environment, we're not in HANA 2. We're still on version 1.
Okay.
You know, and I don't think we're planning to. I don't think we're planning to upgrade anytime soon.
Okay. hmm So you must be on the HANA 1 revision 12 or something, SP 12 or something.
Yeah. What about
Okay.
table partitioning and any helpful store procedures to help with administering HANA?
Yeah, so table partitioning, these are some advanced techniques, but I can show you, show it to you. Because, table partitioning is done different way depending upon, what applications you are using on top of your HANA database. So, for example, if it's a SAP BW application, then table partitioning is mostly driven by the application. Application decides, um, how to partition and how not to partition. And apart from that, we can of course cover some basics about where to do the table partitioning in HANA, like Studio, how you initiate a table partition, etc. So under the HANA operations, we can uh, under the periodic tasks or something, we can have something like table partitions, etc. Yeah. So I'll just start with a demo that you're already working on SAP HANA. So you must be knowing most of the you must have the basic knowledge about HANA. So that's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah.
just
I've got like scattered knowledge on HANA because I was a basis admin, and then went on to be
Mhm.
being a DB2 DB admin for the last 6 years. So now
Okay.
I'm back into HANA. So I've really been away from SAP for a while. So I'm just trying to bring all the information together so I can have a organized, structured approach to fixing issues.
Yeah,
So
because SAP HANA, HANA administration, it goes very closely hand in hand with basis administration. You
yes,
know,
yes,
you will need to have uh, the basic knowledge about the applications administration as well, like the basis administration as well. Then it works really well. That combination.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. So we'll just, I'll just take you through my standard introduction, HANA introduction presentation.
Okay,
Maybe you're already aware of these things, but as a formality, I'll just take you through those initial slides as a demonstration. Yeah.
okay, okay. So
So
how many
first
years
thing
of
first,
HANA do you have? How many years of experience do you have with HANA?
see, I've been working, on the HANA database platform on various HANA projects since 2011. So HANA was launched in 2010. Just about, I think, today or yesterday they celebrated 10 years of HANA. So I was one of the initial movers into the HANA administration space.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. And I've worked on various HANA database implementation projects, whether they are on-premise, cloud, and the HANA migration projects where we have migrated the database from on-premise into the cloud, architecting various large-scale databases, etc. So that we
Okay.
have worked. So first things first, let's see what is the full form of SAP HANA. It is high performance analytical appliance. So that is full form. The interesting thing here to note down is it's the analytical appliance. So HANA is not purely a database; it's an appliance, which is a combination of your database plus your application software. So that's how it's bundled together, your database plus your application. Uh, it's will later we will come to know how it's called, why it's called an appliance, because it's got its own application server as well. It's platform basically. Um you can develop web applications directly on top of its own inbuilt platform, etc. So it's like a platform which is combination of your traditional databases technologies plus your application server capabilities. So HANA is an in-memory platform which is deployed as an on-premise or on the cloud, which you all know now. You must be aware of that. It's a hardware and software combination that integrates a number of SAP components, including SAP in-memory database. So basically, it's a combination of your hardware plus software technologies. So it's not only, because it's not that your HANA database can run anywhere. It needs a specific hardware, certified hardware, that too in a certain way. Then only you can run that database. Like some of the other databases, you can install anywhere on any operating system. It's not like that. So HANA is a special, you know, um, binding towards the operating systems. So basically, it says, it's a in-memory computing appliance that combines SAP database software with pre-tuned servers, storage, networking hardware from one of the several SAP hardware partners. It is designed to support real-time analytic and transactional processing. One important thing here is, it is designed to support your real-time analytical and transactional processing. So that means it can support both your OLAP as well as OLTP applications. So like your SAP ECC is a transactional application. So you capture your SAP transactions there. So it supports. It is designed to support that, as well as it is designed to support your analytical applications like your SAP BW, etc. So that's how the SAP HANA or like definition goes like that. Now, as an introduction to HANA, it's an in-memory platform. It's a platform. Okay, it's not just a database. You can build your applications. You can use this as a ETL. Your data warehouse as well. You can use it as a sidecar approach to your existing database and develop the cleanse your data, etc. from there on. So these different things can be done here. Okay, it combines your online analytical OLAP. So that's what I told you. Like it combines your OLAP and OLTP in one database. Okay, its primary function as a database server is to store and retrieve data as requested by the application. In addition, it performs following advanced analytical functions. So it has got the libraries, and it has got the database structure such that these different things can be performed onto this database. So your text search, your streaming analytics, SAP data processing, so like some predictive analysis. So some of the use cases would be uh, some people get data from Twitter and then do some sentiment analysis, etc. So SAP HANA has got the plugins, and the database has got those things uh, within it. So now from so as you know, this is SAP HANA is an in-memory database. So let's understand what exactly is the in-memory database. Okay, when you say in-memory, so let's understand what is in-memory database here. So this is your so let's say this is your computer's motherboard. Then what we say is we have a RAM on top of it, which is attached to a motherboard. This is your RAM. Then you have disks, then you have, of course, have the operating system on top of it. So this is your operating system. And maybe the square should be small. It should not go beyond motherboard, but that's fine. Yeah. And you have the disks on top of your RAM. So this is your disk. So now traditional databases, they reside onto the disk here. Okay, this is where your database would be. But as we know, as a basic, of the computing, if you store something in RAM, that is retrieved very fast. Otherwise, what happens is the flow goes like this: something goes from your disk into your RAM, and from RAM it's processed, and then it's given to your output device, or whatever it is your application you're calling it from. So in terms of HANA database, this is the database that's been specially developed to reside into your RAM. So entire database stays inside the RAM. So this is where your database will stay inside your RAM. Now RAM is a volatile memory. It's a flash memory. So what happens when when you shut down your server? So that's where we'll learn into the database architecture, that how the persistence layer is built upon, so that at any point of time all your necessary data uh, required by the application stays inside your RAM, and it's retrieved very fast, as well as it has got a foolproof persistence, so that if your server is shut down in time, like in our laptop also, the files are stored in the RAM, and in case the laptop is abruptly shut down, we lose the updates. So so there are mechanisms within your HANA database appliance, which constitutes your hardware plus RAM plus disk plus special software HANA database engine, so that nothing is lost between your RAM and disk. The persistence is always maintained, and you can always go back to your latest database stage where you left, or where the server was shut down. So and also you get the benefits of being inside the RAM and having the fast processing. So the database design is such that it stores the data within your RAM. It's highly compressed data that's stored inside the RAM, and the compression and uncompression works very fast because it's inside RAM. It's got, like, the faster access to the to the storage, not storage, but the way the bits that these are stored for your database. And it's a columnar database, so that will have a small slide after this. So how this is stored. So this is how important it is, when you work as a HANA database administrator, to fully understand how these things will work. Where do you see corresponding file structure on your disk, the disk layout, how your database disk layout should be, how your log files are stored, how your database data files are stored, how your log backups are taken, and how these things work as a combination to have a full persistence for the HANA database. So this is all we will learn, during the course. So these are some of the HANA database features. These are fast data retrieval, a reporting solution. It's basically it uses the features of the latest hardware plus the new database technologies, etc. And recently, because of the developments in the cloud storage, many of the customers now prefer to have their database directly hosted on the cloud, like Azure or Google Cloud Services or AWS. Uh, because like till recent past, like 1 or 2 years back, these cloud providers were not having, were having limitations over your RAM. Like there was limitation that only 4 terabyte of RAM can be provided on cloud. But now that limitation, it's fading away. So many of the cloud, like AWS, provides up to 48 terabytes of RAM maximum. So that suits most of the needs for this database, because one of the key things for HANA database is your RAM. Okay, as your data stores inside your RAM, whatever your data footprint is, your RAM should be big enough. Your disk, like your other database, there is a minimum requirement for RAM. You can have, you know if you have a 16 GB RAM or 32 GB RAM or 100 gig RAM, you can still, in the traditional databases, you can still have a database worth of 500 gig stored on the on the disk and very well operate with it if you have 100 gig of RAM. But with HANA, if your data footprint for HANA, which we'll see how it is sized, is 250 gig, you'll need to have a RAM of that server which is way more than 250 gig. That's how this works. So RAM is the key thing that defines your cost for the HANA database. So where it's used, it's used, as you're a SAP consultant, it's used as the database for all the SAP applications. Now SAP has almost made it compulsory to use any new uh, implementation projects should use HANA database. So any new installation of HANA SAP applications should be done with HANA database, or any existing applications running on non-HANA database. I think they will have support till 2025, which is under discussion. So mostly by 2025, all the customers across the world will have to migrate, to the HANA database. So many places it's been used. It's been used in the retail. It's been used in the sports as well, to do the real time analysis of thousands of the data sets that they collect. Now this is SAP HANA as a platform. This is just an overview that how you know uh, uh, you'll see the this is the database engine actually, how that's used, to have different sorts of capabilities like search capabilities, text analysis, etc. And you can get data inputs from various sources here. That's what is shown in the bottom here: social networking, text data, geospatial data, machine data, RFID, or we can have connect your, get the data from Hadoop, etc. Or of course, if you are running any application on top of it, you know, the data is stored from the application like a standard data, structured data, first option. And then you have your front end capabilities like app server inbuilt, which has got access engine app server. The applications can be developed. And outside of database ecosystem, these are various standards that are supported for the client applications like SAP. SAP uses SQL connections to the database. Some other tools use MDX. Some web-based tools use HTTP, OData, like that. So this is the whole ecosystem of the HANA database. There's some advantages of using, HANA database against the traditional databases. Like you have the CPU, multi-core CPUs, and memory, in-memory database. And these are some features like row store versus column store, partitioning, compression, insert only on delta. We'll learn through this later on. And so basically, it's the combination of all these things that makes HANA database worth using for customers. Um, and one key thing is the compression here, because the database, it goes inside RAM, and RAM is a very costly, hardware. So it's very highly compressed. The database is highly compressed. So SAP says that at maximum, your standard data, which is let's say in any other database, SAP can compress it up to 7 times. So let's say your data, which is in let's say Oracle database, it's 700 gig. For HANA, it might just be 100 gig database. It's not exactly the 7 times it will compress, but it compresses quite a few, close to that. So again, it's like row store, column store. We'll just see one slide wherein we'll see how what is the column store. So this is your traditional. This is how your traditionally the database will be stored. Your A, B, C, all your values are stored. Like this onto the disk or the drive we use, hard drive we use. But in column store, all the columnar values are stored next to each other, like this. So let's say the first column is employee name, second column is employee number. So in a traditional database, this is how it will be stored. But in the columnar database, the employee names or the first column will be stored next to each other. Okay. Now, usually the HANA database is used for such applications, or mainly the transactions and the reporting applications are such that they read through the columns. Mainly the column data is fetched out, So that suits the column storage here. So let's say there is a statement called select A and C from table A. Okay. So this is your table A, and you want to select the column A and C and display that data. So here the CPU needs to scan through each row. Even though it will scan an entire row, it will fetch only two values, this A and this C. This A, this C. This A, this C. So it's actually putting a lot more efforts. Now in columnar database, what happens is it will only scan twice, column A, column C, and the result is fetched. So that's the advantage of column store database against your row store. Now some cases row store is also useful, like an employee records. If someone wants to fetch an entire employee record, all the fields of an employee, let's say A, B, C, D, all the fields are to be fetched. In that case, the row store is better. This is called row store. This is called column store. HANA has the ability to have both the stores. It can have both row store as well as column store. So a table when it's created, uh, the HANA developers know which kind of table is to be used for which situation, and if there is a SAP application on top of it, it automatically creates the tables accordingly. Some tables it will create as row store, some it will create as a column store. Now, these column store tables, the another advantage of column store tables is it's easy to compress. There are various compression algorithms that SAP gives, and it's easier to compress. So that is also one of the advantage of column store database. So this was like short introduction. This is how 2011 SAP HANA was launched. Then they had SAP BW HANA, Business Suite Pod on HANA, Simple Finance, then S4 HANA, and now it's B4 HANA as well is there. So this is just a timeline. Yeah. So this was a short demo of introduction to what is SAP, what SAP HANA is. Any questions or feedback on that?
Yeah, no questions. Other than like with the views, when we create views and their performance issues, will you cover how to, look at the, SQL queries for the views? I mean, I know they're very complex joins, but those are one of the issues we run into in the environment where, a query is taking a long amount of time to run. It could be due to CPU, could be due to memory,
Yeah, your yeah. So your voice is actually a bit feeble, so I could not hear completely. But if I understand your question correctly, you want to know if there is a view that is having a serious performance issues, then how you will troubleshoot that, understand the
yeah,
joins and analyze the joins, etc. Right?
yes, yes, yes.
So that particular piece of work, is not part of the HANA administration course. That's in the HANA modeling course because mainly the developer, it's a custom view. You know, they need to follow the best practices like HANA says. For example, one of uh, the use case is that a row store and column store table should not be joined together in a join. So so these are some basic practices they need to follow, and once these guidelines are followed, these performance issues are mainly resolved. What database administrator is concerned about, is there any general performance issue within HANA database? You know, is your queries is the memory consumption of the host is going very high? Is the database is throwing any crash dumps? Is the database throwing any out of memory dumps? Is something is eating up a lot of CPU? Then we can look into that. But the join analysis and is to be done by the HANA modeler, either HANA modeler, or if it's a SAP application, then whatever the custom code that's been developed by the ABAPer, in it, they need to analyze that.
Okay. Yeah, that's because right now we're having critical performance issues. We're having to restart the HANA database every weekend. You know.
Hmm.
So the other question is, so when we restart the HANA database, then when HANA comes back up, it has to reload all the data into memory, all the tables into memory, right?
Hmm.
So does it reload all the tables in memory? What I'm being told that the data only comes into memory after the restart based on the queries coming from BW.
Yeah, see, there are two things here. By you know by default, if it's a BW application, by default the application, okay, while restart of the database, if a table is marked as preload, active for preload, it will load into your database into RAM when a restart is done. Okay, so usually the applications do mark critical tables as preload. You can mark them as a preload from HANA Studio as well. Then those tables will be completely loaded into your RAM when you restart your database. But then that increases your restart time.
Hmm.
So
But then,
BW, yeah.
but then that means there would be performance issues, like if you know, because these are users that the users in BW on the reporting side are users that only work during mostly business hours. You
Hmm.
know, so what happens is they all start to run their queries, and now they're still, even though the database is back up, but now
Hmm.
what they see is a lot of performance issues because now all they're trying to get all the data back into memory.
Yeah, then in that case, simply get the list of tables, list of important tables from the BW, whoever is the BW, developer or consultant, and mark those tables as preloading on for those tables. And every time you restart your database, all those tables will be present in the RAM after the restart.
So you said this can be done as the reload functionality can be done at the application level, which is BW, and at the HANA level, right?
Yeah, it can be done at both the levels because especially for BW, there are a lot of things that can be controlled at application level. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Or
Yeah.
if they are not able to do at application level, it can be done at HANA level as well. It's
Okay, maybe that's something I need to cross check. Also we've been having issues with the backups as well. So we back up to a third party tool called Commvault.
okay.
So with Commvault, I don't understand how the backups in HANA works. I mean, there was a time that there was a performance issue due to end of month activities where there's more data coming in, and the way that I've got it is that HANA continues to archive.
Mm-hmm.
With the back, I think it's called the backup int,
Back end.
process. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
back
back
end
end.
process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So is there a way to tune that? You know, give it more CPU, when end of month activities is running? Is that something you can discuss in the training? Because I'm saying that the backup is a, you know, critical issue as well during end of month activities. So what happens if we have a freeze at the last week of the month,
Mm-hmm.
and then come first week of the next month, it looks like there's a lot of data coming in, and then at that
Mm-hmm.
point, the back end process gets really busy to where
Mm-hmm.
it's using a lot of CPU or it's probably creating locks on tables. I'm not particularly sure. I don't think lock on tables occur with archiving, right?
Yeah, I mean it depends upon the situation because the database backup it creates a consistent copy first of the entire database and then it does a backup. So whatever happens during the backup process. So maybe so basically we can discuss about the basic process of how the backup in HANA works.
Okay.
And if you have any questions, we can try to see those questions, real time questions. But of
Okay.
course, yeah, that requires uh, we we will see how what that question is.
Okay. Okay. So, the thing is, I'm already supporting production, and, the training is not going to be that formal, So what I'm looking for is some specific things, installation of HANA, you know,
Hmm?
after, after, after that, performance, tuning.
Mm-hmm.
then also the backup restores,
Mm-hmm.
uh, how to stop and start, you know, to HANA, that kind of stuff. Because I really don't have time to go through a whole form of training.
Got it.
I just need something to kind
So
of bridge me.
you absolutely. So I think what you're more looking for is the operational part of the training, the
Exactly.
the actually how you will install your HANA, how you'll upgrade your HANA, how in real time you will troubleshoot using HANA Studio, whatever you see in HANA Studio, how you will do a restore and backup, and then you want to discuss some real time scenarios or the problems that you're facing in your workplace, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I could probably do this based on the certificates that I've gotten in
You can list out the
the
things you want to take training on and pass it on,
exact
and I'll
exactly.
I'll just I'll go through that and I'll see how much of that is feasible and how much time it will take to deliver that particular short training for you, a customized training for you on those
Ex-
particular things. So if you can list out and send it across, we'll work upon that. But that's possible as long as we have the access, and you have the access to HANA as well at your workplace. So whatever you learn, you can quickly check there. So what is the environment you're working on? Is it the only BW on HANA, and how big is it? What is the size of the HANA server?
I think it should be about, if I'm correct, about 8 terabytes.
8
Com-
terabytes, and it must be a scale out environment, right? Multiple nodes.
no, not multi. It's not a multi-tenant. But it's got
Yeah.
uh, it's not multi-tenant. You know,
No, no, but it's the
but
multi node environment. Does it have a couple of servers like clustered together?
well, for production, it only has one server. Then dev one
One.
server. You know, QA one server, and then we've got another environment. You know, with one server.
Hmm. So for
Yeah,
production, you have 8 terabyte of single server.
exactly. 8 terabytes on a single server.
Is it on-prem or it's on any cloud provider?
Uh, on-prem, but we're already looking to do S4 HANA for the ECC and other environments. So we're prototyping on that right now, but that's mostly on the basis side.
Okay, okay, yeah, fine,
You know.
fine. So you would do one thing. You would just list down